Hello, so today I'll be talking about the SAMHSA model of psychological recovery, and in particular, their 10 guiding principles of recovery. So, I will be starting with a bit of a summary of my personal story. So, just to explain, I had a really tough time between grade 5-ish when my grandmother passed to around mid to end of high school because I got bullied a couple times, which then led to other mental health issues such as body image issues and eating disorder, and then finally anxiety and depression, which made me realize I had ADHD. So, plethora of things. And all of that, I think, relates to it because it took some sort of recovery on my part to get to that, which is why the 10 pillars of psychological recovery make a bit of sense. So, to start with them, in order, we have hope, which I think was something that I really related to because I needed hope in order to pull myself out of those situations because of me being hopeful. So, I'll give an example. When I was like even having suicidal thoughts, which I guess is the opposite of hope in some way, you giving up. Even then, I would tell myself, no, there's something to live for, or you can get help. I even went to the hospital. I reached out, which I think takes this amount of hope or trust that you have a future to do. So that's where I think I had hope. And then in terms of self-directed or person-driven, it has to be from you. So I think this takes a level of being assertive or proactive in order to recover from something. It's not like other people can make you recover, People can help, but I think there's it has to be at least some of it or even most of it coming from you. And I think that I relate to because I chose to go to therapy, I chose to get help, and I chose to incorporate those tools and habits that I was learning from others. So through psychology, through psychiatry, I got help. And I decided to get medicated, which was a personal choice, which I think also helped my recovery. And the next pillar is many pathways. So that involves it means there are two different things. It means that recovery isn't necessarily like this. It can be like this, which was the case for me, bumpy road, right? But it also means that everyone's pathway is different. So that can mean for someone to shut out people who have given them a tough time, who are holding them back from their recovery. And on the other hand, it can be accepting help from others. My pathway in particular was a bit of both. I think setting clear boundaries when people were overstepping or holding me back from recovery was important, but I also think that I need to learn to accept help. So those two are really important to me. Next, we have a holistic approach. So that can mean recovery, meaning the whole thing. So it's not necessarily just medication, which I think for sure helped me, but it also has to do with psychological health. It has to do with nutrition, it has to do with sleep, has to do with going in therapy, using other tools, and so I did that as well. Next, peer support. So I think although it was very I used a lot of my own strength and will to get better to recover. The peer support was really important to me because if you don't have a good environment, if you don't have a good relationship with your family, with your friends, with your team, people helping you, so I had a psychologist, psychiatrist, and a family therapist, without all of that, you end up in a pretty tough spot. So I think those people were pretty important to my recovery. And thankfully, through family therapy, my parents became a really important tool to me and got even better at helping me. Next, relational has to be it's kind of similar to the other one, but it has to do as well with feeling that you can relate to others and having this sort of trust. So I think especially with my medical practitioners or my workers, so social workers like my therapist and others, it was really important for them to feel like they were empathizing with me because or else I would feel if I wasn't feeling supported, I probably wouldn't have opened up as much, nor would I have felt understood enough to come forward about things that I wouldn't have told others to begin with. Next, culture. As much as Western things is not necessarily a culture I'm not used to because I was born here, etc., I think our culture puts forth a very thin body type and kind of glorifies it, which I think worsened my body image by a lot because I always felt even when I was at my skinniest, I was like, this is not enough. I have to be model skinny. I have to change my bone structure, which is impossible. So I think, that was one of the things. And also being a good student by working hard and overexerting yourself is also something that's glorified. And I think that also was unhelpful. And by addressing trauma, we also have, that's the next pillar, number 8. To address trauma, we have to, that's important in order to move on because if I push something down or press all these feelings, then I'm never really going to get rid of them, right? Because you can't just push it down. You have to let it come out a little bit and sit with it and then let it fade away slowly. So for me, that was my bullying. I had to work through that in therapy a lot. I had to work through my body image issues instead of just pushing them down and ignoring the fact that I had to look at myself in the mirror occasionally, things like that. Next one, number 9, is strength and responsibility. So I think that has to do with, of course, taking charge, being courageous in terms of facing diagnoses and the problems you face, but also means taking responsibility with like the things that you might have done to worsen your situation, but also means that you're taking charge of your own things. So it's also being, I think, very proactive about your thing. So I think being responsible for yourself would be like, I took charge in feeding myself enough when I was recovering, etc. And the last one is respect. So that means self-respect mostly, but also mean respect for others who feel the same as you. In my case, what I struggled with the most was respecting myself. Because as much as I would say I respect myself, and I would say all these good things about myself, I was really not respecting myself by starving myself, by not accepting support. So when I ended up feeding it enough, my body, and ended up accepting support, that was when I was really respecting myself enough. To it, the first one is respect the Pope and his holistic approach by, he relates to his peers by talking about their culture. So in that, I have already a few there. I have 6 from what I remember. So the respect, meaning respect, the Pope, meaning hope, and his holistic approach. So holistic is literally the word for word holistic. The only thing that really changed in this was the Pope. I changed hope for Pope. But to me, the rhyme makes it stick anyways. And since Pope is such a big part of it, hope was easy to remember. So yeah, respect the Pope and his holistic approach. And he relates, relates to his peers, peer support, by talking about everyone's culture. That to me is 5, I think, 5 or 6. 6. I counted badly. And then we have the next part, which is I think even more sexual abuse related, so sorry about that in advance. A person, so in this one, I'll just read the whole thing first. A person who they abused got trauma. That's pretty self-explanatory. And it takes strength to point out who was responsible for the abuse. And then I end up finishing by saying there are many pathways to success. So I think in there we have the last 4. So when I said the person who got abused, so that's person-driven, got trauma, so addresses trauma would be that one. And it takes strength to point out who's responsible. So that was like a 2-in-1. So strength and responsibility is one of the pillars. And then I finish off by saying there are many pathways to recovering. So many pathways is just one of the things about many pathways. So in total, that makes the 10 pillars. I'm going to recite them off the top of my head now, but I'll say the story instead of explaining it bit by bit. So the respect, the Pope, so hope, and his holistic approach, he relates, so relational, to his peers, peer support, by talking about their culture. That's 6. Next, we say a person who they abused got trauma, so addresses trauma. It takes strength to point out who was responsible, so strength and responsibility. And this is really weird, sorry. And there are many pathways to recovering, so many pathways. So yeah, just to summarize, I used a bit of rhyming, like a bit of like similar wording in terms of Pope and hope, but that was only one of them. And the rest, I made myself a story with keywords from those pillars. Thank you for listening, and sorry for rambling on a bit too much.